think that we get into this habit of, especially early on, you're like, I'll tap dance, I'll do anything that you want. I can be this
I'll
person,
be
I can be that
whoever you want
person.
me to be.
You
Yes.
know? And
Yeah.
like, then that's just awful because they're never happy because you're not really that person. And you're not happy because you're having to work to be something you aren't.
I'm Charla Larston. I've been a TV writer for almost a decade, but it wasn't that long ago that quitting my day job and moving to Hollywood was nothing but a pipe dream. After lots of failures, many mistakes, and many lessons learned, I've now written for 7 TV shows, 2 features, and sold 3 TV pilots. I've done all this through imposter syndrome, burnout, and with zero roadmap. On the Working Writer podcast, I pull back the curtain on breaking in and teach screenwriters and creatives how to thrive both personally and professionally. Without further ado, let's get to work.
What's up and welcome to another episode of the Working Writer Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me once again. I'm so excited to introduce our next guest. Kristen Bartlett has written for SNL and Samantha Bee. She's also a former UCB alum. In this conversation with Kristen, we kind of get into the importance of taking up space and how difficult it was for Kristen to take up space. And I totally relate. Taking up space is something that I've struggled with for so long. And just the idea that I belong somewhere, that I'm worthy of being somewhere, that it's okay to inconvenience other people, that it's okay to prioritize myself. All of these things have been so important in my creative journey. And I feel like if we are not able to take up space in the real world, then it's really hard to take up space with our creativity. So I am so looking forward to you checking out this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Kristen Bartlett. Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know about a free guide I made for those of you out there struggling to get work done called How to Stop Procrastinating and Get in Flow with Your Work. A lot of you know me as a TV writer and comedian, but I'm also a productivity coach who helps creatives and solopreneurs overcome perfectionism and procrastination and find routines they can stick to so they can reach their life and career goals. If you've been struggling to finish that pilot, or if you've been overwhelmed and stuck in freeze mode, this guide will help you take those first steps into finally getting off the procrastination hamster wheel once and for all. Go to the link in the description and get your free guide to stop procrastinating and get in flow with your work. And now back to the show. Kristen Bartlett, welcome to the show.
Yay! Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here.
It's so lovely to have you. We haven't talked in a very long time. I think the last time I saw you was almost a decade ago in New York City. Like, I haven't seen you again.
You were very like lovely. I think you did my show FOMO Live. I think you may have done that.
Okay.
Don't know if you remember. It was an evening, and I think that was the last time that I saw you. It's been a long time.
I love how you're like, it was in the evening, as if that would be what helps me remember the show. I don't. But I do remember, I do remember doing that comedians getting coffee with Jason like a million years ago.
Web series with
Jason. You guys did super fun. Yeah. Super fun.
And thank you.
Yeah. Well, tell me about who you are. I feel like I've never had the chance to ask you, like, where are you from? How did you grow up? Like, who are you?
Well, I'm from North Carolina. So I'm from the South.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know? I feel like I project it. I'm from North Carolina. I grew up to a working class family. My family worked in textiles. There was this textile factory in town that basically employed everybody. And then it went out of business. And that's sort of the story of my of my growing up, I feel. And yeah, I'm from the mountains, from outside of Asheville, and it's a place that got very cool after I moved away. It's a beer town now, but it wasn't cool then. We were constantly bored and looking for things to do. I went to Baptist college.
Wow. Which one? Do you mind if I ask?
Sure, Wingate University.
Okay, I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Yeah, they lost their affiliation. I started at Chapel Hill and then I transferred to Wingate. They offered me a little bit more money, and I also didn't like UNC. It was too big, which is funny because immediately after that I was living in New York. But for some reason, I didn't I feel like I was already over college when I was doing it. I was like, these kids who are drinking. I had no interest in that lifestyle. I knew I wanted to be gone. And so I transferred to Wingate, which I loved. It was this tiny little school. And I liked being around people that didn't necessarily agree with me politically. There was something more fun and engaging about it. Yeah. And so then started my life, got married right out of college, 22.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, babies.
That's a very Southern thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's such a Southern thing to like get married immediately. And I wasn't even the first of my friends to get married. There was already, there were weddings happening. But yeah, we got married. I got married right out of college. Jason was a little older. He's about 5 years older. So I like that. I like that I'll always be the young one, no matter how old we get. He's always old.
I love how you're holding it against him.
Yeah, well, I need it. It makes me feel youthful as we age, even though he looks so young.
He looks quite young, Kristen. I'm sorry to break it to
you.
He
looks much younger than I do.
He looks young. Yeah. I don't think he looks younger than you, but I'm surprised when you said it that he was 5 years older than you. That's like older than I would have thought. Yeah.
He's legit older. In fact, everyone says it. Like we got stopped we were doing Clear at the airport, which I just canceled because I don't know why that was my working days money. Paying for Clear.
I didn't even know how much Clear is, but
it's like too much. It's $200.
It's not worth it.
It's not. That's insane. But they stopped us and they like looked at our IDs and said, "Wow, you look so much younger than your age." To Jason, and then off we went. So that's where I am. That's what I get. So yeah, we got married. Our first life was in Atlanta, Georgia. That was like I wanted to work in entertainment, but didn't really know how. I had done an internship through the academy. So I'd spent from the TV Academy. So I'd spent some time in Los Angeles, but we couldn't really afford to make that kind of move. Yeah, we were poor kids, man. So I got my first job working standards and practices at Turner Broadcasting. And standards and practices are, the people who press the button when someone says
yeah.
It's fun.
That can't be everybody's job at standards and practices. Like that. That's probably one person's job.
The button is a priority, but also like clearing all of the content. So you read scripts.
Oh, very cool.
You work with writers, you work with talent, and you say, you can do this on television. You can't do this on television.
Oh, you're those guys.
You're those guys. It's a solid job, dude. Wow. And rating. We were the people who put like TV 14 or TV PG or something like that. So that's a whole job. And I did that. I was an assistant to start and then kind of moved up the ranks and became an editor. And I started working on Super Deluxe, which was this comedy website. And there was this period of time where they were paying creators in New York to make content for this website. And I became fans of people like Chelsea Peretti and Adam Conover, who had shows on the channel, and really became aware of comedy writing as a possibility. And so then I took another S&P job at CBS in New York, moved up to New York, and started taking classes at UCB. And then my dad and Jason's dad died, and that kind of changed.
Back to back?
4 months. They were back to back.
Oh, wow. That is so short. Oh, wow.
It was a short period of grief and madness, and sort of unexpectedly so. It was just this, and we were very young. Like we were in our 20s. It's like very shocking. But that experience, I developed a very morbid sense of humor, like very dark, because that was our coping mechanism. And B, like, because we were both going through exactly the same thing, we were able to be with each other and like there for each other in a way that I think when someone's grieving, sometimes it's hard to be patient. Like it's hard to be, like, I've seen it happen over and over again. Like with couples, it's very hard for like one of them to fully understand until you do. Like it's just so hard. So we were in this period of like really understanding each other. And one of the things that came out of it was like, hey, like, this is the dream. Why are we circling the dream? Can we like do something that makes this dream happen? And then we did. We got very serious about UCB. I wanted to be a comedy writer, so we started doing sketch and improv, doing the whole thing. And it grew from there. That was sort of how we got our start, though. Yeah.
I love it so much. What a beautiful story. I kind of love that, Kristen.
I would love it if the death didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our coping mechanism for sure. And I developed like a very dark sense of humor about it. So I think sometimes when a friend loses someone, that's my go-to. And I realize not everybody's coping mechanism is the same. So we got to be
Right.
careful.
Yeah. Some people need nice words and
and not dark jokes.
Not dark jokes, not dark jokes. But I do think that that's interesting. I had a slightly similar experience in terms of going after comedy. It was after I had like a little bit of like a quarter life crisis. It was not the same as losing a parent or me and my spouse losing a parent at the same time.
But it's the same,
it was,
though. I mean, like,
exactly. It gives you this trigger. It's this like life is, there's more to life. Life is short kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, we're all gonna die. It's just a reminder of our mortality and like, are we really living the way that we want to live? And I think that's it's I don't know if it's sad that it takes that to get you to really go after your dreams, but that's what it takes sometimes. Like,
it does. I mean,
facing death. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural progression. And I also think if you don't have contacts who are close to the thing that you want to do, then it doesn't seem within the realm of a thing that could actually happen. So if you're constantly being told, like, do the safe thing, like, make sure you have insurance, which is important, but like, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, like, that's it. And I think probably if you were raised similarly, then that's where it is, you know?
Absolutely. But I do think it's such a cool adventure, though, you know, to be from such a different world, to be from a world where that is like so outside of the realm of anything that you would ever do. And then decide that you want to pursue this thing that you've literally never seen anyone in your family, anyone in your immediate circle even ever talk about. And you're just going on this crazy journey. I think it's quite transformative and quite interesting. You know, it's perilous, probably.
But also, like, I have the funniest people in my family. Like, I don't know. Like, my dad was such a funny man, like such a performer. He served in Vietnam, and growing up, I remember like someone called in the middle of the night because they remembered him singing like a funny song when they were serving, and they were having a flashback of this. And so, like, my dad was just always a little bit of a performer, even if that wasn't a life that he got to live.
Yeah.
And they encouraged all of that. Like, I did theater, I did all of those things. And so they were always very encouraging of that. But in terms of the realisticness of it, I remember when I got the job at SNL, my mom's first question was, is there health insurance?
Yeah. Very similar
and I was happy
question.
to say, yes, there is.
Yes.
But that's just a priority, and it makes sense, you know? You want your kids to
Absolutely.
be safe.
Well, I do think that's awesome. It's true. I also have a lot of like really funny, talented people in my family, and I wonder if it's almost just that the world is closer to us than we imagine. You know, like the world, like I really think it's like bringing this whole entertainment industry to like grounding it in reality and like remembering that it's a part of our world. It's not this completely different world that you're not invited to.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember like growing up, one of my favorite things, every Friday, Mom and I would go out to dinner together. We would be at some place, and it felt like comedy hour. I would just be telling her the stories of the week, you know, and that was kind of like what made me feel alive and good. And I hope she enjoyed it. I think she did. So there are always like shades of that. And then it's amazing to have been able to create a career from it, though, for sure.
Super amazing. You've had quite the career at this point, you know, which is really cool. Who isn't? You know, we're all trying. We're all trying. Yeah, it's so So tell me about it. So like how did you break in? Like where did you make the transition from doing stuff at UCB to now I can't remember if SNL or Samantha Bee was your first
SNL was the first
job.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy first.
It is. It's a great first though. It really breaks your brain open to the world. So I guess I did a show at UCB called The Dead Dads Club. And that was, you know, a few years after the loss, and sort of translating that experience into a show that was both character driven and sketch and storytelling. And that experience doing that show kind of pushed me into a different level, a different stage. And I had been working with a sketch team called Bridge and Tunnel. We were doing monthly shows, but that show is the one that kind of like made me feel very ready to kind of take a leap, I think. And so I went half-time for this ad agency that I was working at. And I was doing at that point the same thing like standards and practices for advertising. So I was doing that, and I had asked to go half-time to go, to try to work from home for part of the week, and they couldn't do it. And then a year later, they lost a client, and they came back to me and said, hey, is this something that you would still want to do? Because otherwise it would mean having to lay people off. And I said, absolutely. So at that point, I was doing enough like digital stuff. Do you remember there was some e-cards? There were all of these little things that you could do. I had like a short gig writing for Prairie Home Companion, which was that radio show. There, like any kind of little bitty gig I could find, I would do. And it kind of made up the money that I was making or that I had lost from going half time. And it gave me more time. So I worked from home most of the week, except for one day. And that time just filled with performing and directing and any kind of side freelance gig. And I didn't have reps. So my friends, and especially Michael Hartney, would send me packets. And I would do packet after packet after packet, a lot of very bad ones. And then for SNL, I heard about it a year before that they took this packet in July. And I submitted a packet. It was like I heard about it the day before it was due. So I submitted a packet that was terrible and didn't hear anything, but I was ready the next year. And so I used sketches that I had done on Mod Night at UCB, sketches that I had written with the digital team that I was on there, and submitted a packet, and then got called in for an interview that August, I think, 2016. That was the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. What was the interview process like?
It was amazing. Like that's the dream, right? I worked for, so long at CBS, which is the Black Rock building, 53rd and 6th. So it's very close to 30 Rock. And I would go through 30 Rock every day to get to work from New Jersey. And like, there's just a little bit of a dreaminess to that place. Like that was, I grew up loving Molly Shannon, loving Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry. So that was a dream. And I couldn't believe that they called me. Laura Valk, who I worked with later, was the one I think who made that phone call, which was really great. And just sort of set a meeting. And I went in and I talked to Chris Kelly and Sarah Schneider, who were going to be the head writers that season, and Brian Tucker, who had been a head writer for a while. And it was amazing to be in that space. It was weird. It was like, oh, crap, I'm here. Like, what an insane thing to happen. I just vowed to kind of enjoy it as much as I could, because it's hard to believe that something like that would happen, like, so that's what it did. And I remember like walking out onto the street after the meeting. We just really talked about what the show entailed, what they were looking for, my experience. It's a very typical interview. They're really just like sussing out if you were a person they would like to see in the middle of the night, which is what happens. And it went great. And I kind of just asked them like what they wanted, what they saw, like what would a good first year writer, like what would their experience look like to them. And so Brian Tucker, I remember, talked very openly about his first year and how he felt. It was just great hearing that story. It was great hearing what to expect. And then I remember walking outside. I was directing a show at UCB and I had to go to their rehearsal. And I remember like, I both thought that was insane that it happened, and also that I felt like I maybe kind of got it. And I remember calling Jason, and I was like, I think I got this, but who knows? Because that happens all the time too.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh, this is going to happen, and then it absolutely doesn't. But I just felt elated. I felt very giddy. And then it was a very funny thing going back to UCB and not being able to tell anyone what had just transpired,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that first year like?
Oh my gosh. So it was really an intense time for SNL because Donald Trump was running for president.
Oh,
so
right.
it was that year, So it was very exciting to be in a place where people were really watching what you had to say. They were listening to you. He was listening. Donald Trump was reading about it. It was very cool to be able to respond to the stuff that was happening in the moment that it was happening. Yeah, like that Access Hollywood thing. Like, I remember telling Jason, we were never out early, but it was a Friday night, I think, or possibly a Friday night. Who knows? It was like a night where it seemed like things were starting to get buttoned up and we maybe would be able to go out to dinner together. And Jason was at Comic-Con and I said, hey, like, I think I'm going to be able to get dinner, which is exciting. And so he like left Comic-Con and walked up to 30 Rock. And in between the time that he left and when he got there, the Access Hollywood news had broken. And so suddenly we were all in a room together talking about what a cold open could possibly be. And that dinner did not happen.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of fly by the seat of your pants. I got to work with some incredible people. I worked with Sashir Zameda a lot, which was fantastic. And Alex Moffat, Bobby Moynihan. I loved working with them so much. I think my first sketch was an idea from Sashir that I got to write with her about Stranger Things when Lin-Manuel hosted. And it was just like a moment of learning what is possible because everyone there is the best that they can possibly be. And I think at UCB, you learn to get things done very cheaply. And like whatever it is, it's going to be what it is. And I remember you produce your own sketches there, which is it's like grad school basically. But I learned that you can ask for things to be perfect in a weird way. So there was this Stranger Things sketch, and Sashir was rehearsing it, and she saw that the backpacks that the kids were carrying were not the right backpacks, like true to the show. And so she called me and she was like, hey, can you make sure that these backpacks are right? And so I realized I was like, those are the details. It's no longer what's the funniest joke. It's like making sure that everything looks exactly right because this is really delivering someone's idea. Like you want to really do the right job. And so I remember calling like the props people and making sure that they spray painted the backpacks to get them the right colors. And it was just about entering a new phase, you know?
Very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, and I learned the rhythms of it. I got quite a few things on my first year, which was really fortunate, but it's also everything you've heard about it is true. You don't sleep. You are only hanging out with your only SNL people. So you kind of get in a little bit of a bubble. But one of the great things is that I had Jason who fully understood this journey that I was on and didn't mind, when I came home at 9 o'clock the next morning to just take a nap and take a shower.
Yeah.
It's the right job for the right time.
Right.
But it's not the job for me right now. But he was very patient with that, like he was able to hear me out and he fully understood. Sometimes also, I think rejection there feels harder because you haven't slept and you haven't been a part of the world. So if you've worked all night long on something on Tuesday night and then you get to work on Wednesday and it's all writing on how that thing gets read, if it doesn't get laughs, it feels so personal in a way that nothing else would. So yeah, it's the Thunderdome, I think.
Yeah.
But my first year
what was the hardest?
Yeah.
Say that again. Your first year? How many years were you on there?
Two.
What was the hardest part about being on SNL?
The hardest part? There are a lot of hard parts. I think it's sleep. I love to sleep. I think that's like the cornerstone of like.
I think we need it.
Medically, it's a good idea.
That. Yeah.
It's a good idea to get some sleep. I think I was also a little older when I got that job too. And I think that might be a young person's game.
Sorry, how old were you? Because I feel like you weren't even that old.
I was 30. And that's like,
don't even play games because what's her name? I'm blanking. The black woman. In my
early 30s. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, but like, the black woman who was on there for a few seasons, whose name I'm totally blanking on.
Which one? Which person?
Oh, God. Now I have to look it up. Black lady on SNL.
What's your
Leslie Jones. Yeah, Leslie Jones. First. Yeah, Leslie. So Leslie was much older when she got on SNL.
Well, yeah, but like also it's a different job. So a first year writer versus a performer, who has earned a lot of credit in terms of like their presence has different expectations and different hours, and also like I was living in New Jersey, so I had a commute.
You still didn't move into the city even though you were writing on SNL?
I didn't.
What's that about, Kristen? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the stuff that I talk about in therapy, which is that I really did grow up poor. I really did.
I see.
And so I wasn't ready and I didn't feel confident, and I had a great rent. Jason and I lived in this apartment that we loved that was 3 bedrooms for $1,550. And how do you say no? You know? I know. We live in Jersey City too.
Yeah.
But I did have a commute. Like Lauren, oh shit. Cut this part really quickly. Why basic Lauren Mandel. Okay, I can say this. Lauren Mandel was the writer's assistant, and she knew my deal in Jersey. And so she would text me. I don't even know if anyone else knows this. She would text me whenever she would hear, because the hours SNL could be random. Like you could not be expected to go in. And then suddenly they were like, oh, we need you guys for this reason. And so she would text me and say, hey, Kristen, I think we're going to be like convening in an hour or whatever. And so I would like race to get on the PATH train, you know, and get out of there so that I could be there on time. And yeah, I think I financially could, I know I could have moved into the city, but there was just this thing of like, who knows how long this will last? Like you can afford this. And if everything goes tits up, you'll be fine, you know? And I can't. I'm still working through the same stuff, which is like spending money on myself.
Yeah.
You know, like feeling comfortable with like, if I had it my way, there would be like a ton of money in a mattress somewhere. You know, I just really
not
would.
the mattress, Kristen. At least put it in put it somewhere with interest.
It's in
oh
the
my
bank,
God.
but not enough. This is we can talk about it, but it's true. Like I like seeing that it's there. I like not messing with the stock market. I do, but like I don't, you know, that's what it is. So that's the reason why we stayed.
It was probably smart though. It was probably for the best, not increasing your lifestyle, but increasing your income. Super smart.
100%. So then we had a lot of savings. But Leslie was fantastic. And I did get to work with her. I wrote a weekend update with her, a few other things with her. And she was like a very good model too, because she would say what she wanted and what she needed and could be vocal and like honest about that. And I was like terrified all the time. So I never could. And so that was just like, oh, this is a mentor for someone in a different season of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like no one gives a shit about what I have to say, but someday they might. And so this is like a nice person to look up to in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
all right.
It's a gig, right? Like, do you remember the things that you used to do at UCB, like that I couldn't possibly do now? Like, one of the things I talk about is Jason. I have this memory. The PATH train during Hurricane Sandy went down, and I had a sketch team, Bridge and Tunnel. We had a meeting. This is pre-Zoom, as everything is, and it was St. Patrick's Day, and if you left at a certain hour, if it was like after 9 p.m., then you had to take a little bus from Port Authority back to New Jersey. And that rehearsal, that meeting, whatever it was.
How rude.
So rude. So rude. It was so important to me that I was willing to like do this rehearsal, go to Port Authority, take that bus on St. Patrick's Day, the filthiest time of the year.
Absolutely disgusting.
Nice. Disgusting. And so I feel like your brain is a certain way that it is at that point and never to be again. And SNL has to happen when your brain is there.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine a 45-year-old taking that bus from Port Authority. No, I don't think so. Okay. Not even, girl, I'm not doing it. It's a 22-year-old's game, but SNL did give you a ride. Like if they kept you after a certain point, they would give you a ride home.
And so you know what that meant? That meant that if I was done at 8:30, I would find something to do for 30 more minutes to get my free ride home.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. The one cool perk.
One perk. But you know what? And even that I felt guilty about. I was like, are they going to be monitoring how many rides I have?
What do you mean?
Like, you know, you just worry. You're like, am I taking up too much space? You know what I'm saying?
You can't take up space, right? Yeah, this is something I literally was just working on. It's almost like everybody's healing at the same cadence, you know, like everybody's like, I literally just in this last interview that I did was talking about scarcity, was this scarcity that I grew up in and how it has really shaped my mind around having and like the fear of not having and the fear of, you know, all these things. But what I had said in the episode was that, you know, basically Francesca Ramsey was on the last episode, and she's wonderful. And we were basically talking about how we got really woo woo. And we're talking about how part of our job as adults is to heal our inner child. Because otherwise, you know, you'll be post SNL, post Samantha Bee, and still living in this mindset where you were afraid of what you wouldn't have when you were a kid, even though you're no longer in that place or in a totally different place. So it's that scarcity mindset and what you were just talking about, which is this ability to take up space. Like I literally was just talking about this, you know, perfectionism as a trap, because like perfectionism just makes you believe that you can't show up imperfect, and you can't show if you're allowed to show up at all. Like God forbid you're like, somebody sees me and I'm imperfect and oh my God. So I don't know, I think it's a really important part of our I guess journey as millennials or as creatives, is healing this part of ourselves that feels like we're not worthy of being seen.
100%.
Because it's not true. It's not true.
I also think the strike, a lot of the reason why we're all doing this at the same time is that the strike has finally given us time to think about it.
Yes,
so,
100%.
You know, I think I was like work, constantly, overwork, and I didn't have time to think about how the reality of my life had changed versus how I thought about it, you know?
Yeah.
So yes, we're all doing it at the same time.
We're all doing it at the same time. I also just did a video about Hollywood work culture burned me out, basically, because the culture is so nonstop. It's so work nonstop. And I totally bought into it, like most of us do. And it just absolutely just ran me into the ground.
How are you feeling now? Like, are you
I'm so much better. I'm so much better, but it's true. It's the pandemic was helpful in helping to heal some of this burnout and just give me time to take a break, because otherwise I would have never said no to a job. We like quite literally could not. So it was the pandemic. It was the strike.
Yeah. The pandemic for me is maybe when I've been the busiest. So I was both fortunate and not to be head writing at SNL then. And I remember there was always advice like, oh, take time away from the news. Don't pay attention to that. Like and it was like, oh, my whole job is paying attention to every single thing that happens on the news. And I was working on other things at the same time. I was developing. And so truly, it was just a year ago that finally, this is the first time. And even before that, you know, we were doing our day jobs and UCB. That was like multiple jobs at once. When I worked at McCann at the ad agency, because like I couldn't go home to Jersey when I was leaving McCann to go to whatever show or rehearsal or meeting or practice I had after work, my boss gave me permission to go and sleep in the breastfeeding room because no one was breastfeeding at 7 p.m. And so I would go after work and take a nap in there and then go immediately to whatever thing I had to do and then back to Jersey. We have worked that way for 10 years plus, you know, so it's been very good, like to go through this period of, wait a minute, is that what I want? You know, it's taking forever to get there.
And what have you concluded?
I'm still concluding.
Okay.
You know what? I think this past year has given me a perspective on what I want. Like, I want to be able to enjoy the success. I think I'd gotten into a real period of just working and always feeling like I needed to give something to somebody, like I owed somebody something, you know, and that feeling is uneasy. And so I've had more time to think creatively. I think you need to get a little bored in order to have new ideas. And so that has felt like a real luxury to have that time. And I think I'm taking care of myself better than I have in a very long time, just in terms of like the real physical things of rest and exercise and cleaning my house, you know, like those basic things. And those are important. Like that's part of it. And I think also, I remember when we first moved to New York and I was just before all of this dream, you know, before all of that came along, I would have my job, and then Jason and I would go and explore something exciting about New York at the end of the day, you know? And that was very regenerative before that time was replaced with doing improv, you know, or whatever it was. It was like, oh, we're going to try this fish and chip place, you know, we're going to walk down this street, we're going to do this thing. So I think that we've been able to bring a lot of that back into my life, like stuff that isn't work, you know, because I will find a way to turn things into work if I can. And so
right.
trying to be really mindful about that, and setting some boundaries. For the past few years, I have been very fortunate to have a pilot and during broadcast season. So that's changing. I mean, CBS just said that it was dead, but like for a very long time, if you had a pilot that you had sold, a draft was due right before Christmas or right after Christmas.
Yeah.
And so for the past 2 years, and for more or less for the third year, because mine ended up being a Thanksgiving, I lost a holiday to doing a draft. You know, I'd be like working so hard over Christmas and not seeing my family, and I would work like on New Year's Eve on a pilot, you know, and like in all of those cases, I'm very grateful that it happened. But at the same time, it's like, why is this the way? This is not the way.
Right.
Like,
right.
And I'm a Christmas bitch. Like, I love Christmas. So why are we taking Christmas away? You know? So like,
I'm definitely calling you that for the rest of the episode.
I am. I'm a Christmas
because I'm a Christmas bitch too. I love me some Christmas.
I love
oh my
it.
God.
I love it. And so like, I made a goal after the last one. So this was like the beginning of last year. I was like, I do not want to be working over Christmas this year. I did not know that it would be like the outcome of a strike that would lead to me not working. But
Right.
I think at the same time, like I was able to really enjoy it, you know, and we should be living our lives. That's what we're working for.
Yeah. It would be nice for Hollywood's work culture to change.
Yeah.
For there to be some standardization in terms of like, you know, what's best for the actual writer, not just what's best for the timeline of this company.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible. It can totally be done.
It's possible. And also, as my friend, like I have a friend, Halstead Sullivan, who worked on The Office. He gave me some advice. He was like, people will ask a million things of you. You have to be the one to stop and say, this is what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
And so for him, it's like he has this one specific time of year where he goes on vacation, and that's a non-negotiable. And so, and I think also too, like we don't know when we're going to rate that. Like, I don't know when I'm going to be like so important that I can be like, this is the time of year that I don't do anything, but maybe we already are. And so like, maybe
I think we already are. I think,
you know?
I think before, when you're not working and you don't have any credits, you're going to have to, you know, suck it up and get to work. I think after you've got some credits, you know, I think it's okay to start setting some boundaries. And I say that because I really did not know how to set boundaries. And that's one of the issues with being a creative, is this unstructured nature of work that we step into. And there is nothing standard. So it's just like, you have to create the boundaries and the standards. And most of us don't know how to do that, or to do that at all. Like, and so it's
absolutely.
like, yeah, like, so, and I think a lot of us are workaholics because we do come from like, we had to have a day job. We had to have a day job. We had to do the things at night to get to this dream job. So it's just like, yeah, you're used to working at a certain pace, and it just becomes really normal. But at the same time, I think it's hard to recognize when you can stop running and when you can just kind of like walk at a normal pace now. So that's where I'm at.
I think that's great. I talk about this in therapy. Yeah, like my dad was a workaholic as well. So like I fully recognize those behaviors, and I know where it came from, and like I know what he went through. And you know, he worked at this plant, and I remember like he would spend crazy hours there doing like hard manual labor, and he did it until the day he died. And I remember he wouldn't take a vacation, and it was something that really bugged my family, of course. Like it would be really frustrating for my mom. It was frustrating for all of us. She would have to drag him away, you know, to the beach for a week, you know, we were growing up. And so I see this behavior. I know where it comes from. I know this fear of like, I need to provide. I need to make sure that everyone's safe, that sort of thing. And so to have recognized it in someone else, and then to start to see that behavior in yourself, like, you want to be the change that maybe didn't get to happen in the previous generation, Trying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're all just doing our best. I really feel like I'm actually glad that everyone's in this era of kind of just taking care of themselves and like watching out for themselves. It's like, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful
It's
thing.
nice. And then it helps you appreciate when things come along too.
100%. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about Sam Bee.
Yay.
Do you want to join hundreds of creatives and solopreneurs learning how to take their lives and careers to the next level with the Get That Work newsletter? Then go to getthatwork.com/join and sign up to get the newsletter straight to your inbox. And now back to the show. And we're back. So tell me how this happened. So you are on SNL for 2 seasons. As usual, they sweep people out. They do a sweep.
They're sweepers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're sweepers. They cut the roster. You leave SNL.
Yeah.
Can I ask about that though? Actually, because I know that for some of the friends that I have had when they leave SNL, it's a lot of mixed emotions. It's a lot of like. It's very bittersweet.
It was not bittersweet for me. It was sweet.
Nice.
It was time. Like
2 years, you age out.
No, I mean, I believe me. Like, listen, I was not my choice to go, as it isn't for many. I think it had been up to me. I don't know if I would have been brave enough to go, but I remember when it happened, like in my head, I was like, I will not miss this. I just won't miss it. And there were so many things that I kept thinking of that I would not miss. Like I wouldn't miss panicking about having an idea on Tuesday nights. I wouldn't miss not seeing my husband at the end of the day. I wouldn't miss just like turning things that aren't personal into the most personal thing you've ever heard. And I've also felt like I'd had enough successes on the show to have a portfolio, which I did. I did some things on the show that I'm really, really proud of. I had a sketch called Chunk. That is my favorite. That is the most.
That was your sketch.
Yeah, that was one.
That's wonderful. What a great legacy.
We're all just trying to have
Chunk.
a legacy.
Yeah.
I honestly, the truth of the matter is the stuff that was the strongest that I had on the show was the stuff that I did very early on. Because my confidence hadn't been wrecked yet. And I was very naive and I was playing to the top of who I was. But then after a while, I just wasn't strong enough to deal with the culture. It was competitive in a way that is not me. I do feel like I am a competitive person, but not to that extent. And then my work suffered, and when you're so worried about are people going to like this? You're not going to do the best work. And so my strongest work was the stuff before I knew anything, before I was trying.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying very hard, but it was before I understood the risks of not delivering. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that was really how I felt. Found out about it. I was out getting my nails done with Michael Hartney and got this news. And I remember we went into Alice's Teacup in the city. And do you remember Alice's Teacup? It was like a scone
No,
place.
not really. No.
It's just a place for carbs. And we went into this place, and they served tea and scones, and they did not serve booze. And I needed booze. And I said to the person, hey, this just happened. And they immediately went downstairs and brought me their own employee whiskey. They brought me a couple of shots. And so it was great. And I was with this person that I love, was Michael. And then it was, I had tickets to see Hamilton that week. And by the way, listen, I'm a dork. That's I was so into it. And it was the moment of Hamilton. Well, I mean, it was still a little past the moment by the time I was able to
I got to see Hamilton. I was a huge nerd about it and still am. Yeah.
He was such a phenomenal part about my being at SNL. He was the first host that I had a sketch on, and he was so wonderful about it. And he was so encouraging. And I remember when I told him, I said, I've got a sketch on. And he said, and you're crushing it, baby. You're killing it. And it just hearing that from somebody who was really having his own huge moment, who I admired so much, was so phenomenal. he introduced me to his mom at the after party. Like, it was her
So
favorite
cute.
sketch.
Oh my God.
It
I'm
was so
obsessed.
cute.
I can't.
And so I had like tickets to Hamilton that week, and I went to see it with Jay. And I think it was during your shot, like my shot, not during my shot. I started crying. I just started bawling, which is so funny. The poor tourists that were sitting beside me. And I was crying because it was like, this is what someone gets to create when they're not bound by a million rules and 40 years of tradition. Like, this is what someone gets to create when it's just them and they're doing the thing that they are passionate about, that they care about. And so that was so inspiring to me. And it was easy like that. It was just easy to move on.
I love
Because I
that
felt
for
like
you.
I got it. Thank
Good
you.
for
And
you.
I was lying to myself too. I started doing a show called FOMO Live, which was really like out of the experience of SNL, which was I had gotten into this habit of posting Instagrams that looked very cool and like, oh, this famous person or that cool thing is happening. And it made my life look much more exciting than it was. And the reality was like, I was just like spending all my time like wondering, like, does this person like me? Like, am I doing a good job? Is this funny? Do I deserve to be here? Like that was my head. And so I started doing that show and just inviting people to show like Instagrams where they were like lying, telling the story of what their life was. And then they would tell the story
Oh,
of
that is
like,
so funny.
it was healing. It was healing.
That
And so I
is
started,
so good.
because I have
Yeah.
like photos from the Emmys and I look amazing. And it's like, yeah, but also you hadn't eaten and you were feeling awkward. And, there are a million stories. Like that's who we are. Like, we're not the artifice. And so doing that show was really, really great. And Ashley Nicole Black came and did a story on the show, and she was a correspondent and writer on Full Frontal, Samantha Bee at the time. And so she found out I was available, and so she like told Sam, and then I got to go in and meet Sam and Melinda Taub, who was the head writer at the time, and immediately loved them and immediately felt comfortable. And again, it was like I was in a position where I could just be honest about who I was and what I wanted, and I had spent, 2 years trying to be like someone that people liked. And I could just be like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. This is who I am. Like, I still live in my Jersey apartment. I didn't spend any of that money. I'm going to be okay. And I think that that's what they needed at the time. And I also was very honest with them in that I had not really done a lot of political comedy. I was doing a lot of like character stuff or pop culture stuff on SNL. And before that, it was all characters. So I wasn't really a political news girly, if that's what they needed. And so that was also liberating because I think that we get into this habit of, especially early on, you're like, I'll tap dance, I'll do anything that you want. I can be this
I'll
person,
be
I can be that
whoever you
person.
want me to be. Yes.
And
Yeah.
like, then that's just awful because they're never happy because you're not really that person. And you're not happy because you're having to work to be something you aren't. I was very honest with her, and that's what they needed. They needed a goofy joke writer. And then I immediately started writing my goofy jokes. Yeah, it was a joyful place. And Sam is an amazing person. Like, she's just so chill. And like, I think she is like us. Like, she's like not larger than life. She has had this amazing success, but she can be very honest about it too. And she loves to see her family at the end of the day. So those hours were great. Like, I think I was done at 5:30 every day.
Oh, wow.
And I know, think about that. And so I was like, oh, you can run a successful show that people are watching that you are proud to work on and not kill yourself doing it. And so that was like great. And so I stayed there as long as I could.
I love that. I thought
Yeah.
what you were saying about being able to be yourself finally is so true. Like,
Yeah.
the taking off the mask and being like, take it or leave it. But I think you almost wouldn't have been able to do that unless you had the SNL experience. And I feel like
You're right.
we almost
Yeah.
have to have the experience where we tap dance, like, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what I'm tap dancing for, and then to get it, and then for it to not be worth it.
Yeah.
And then and then you still get stuff out of it, but you're just like, if I had the choice, I wouldn't continue to trade myself for whatever this is. But who knows, if you had stayed there, maybe you would have stayed there for like 10 years and
it could have happened.
You have no idea.
What it is, like, people crush it. Like, there are people who can do a really long life there. And also, I also think you earn certain privileges the longer that you stay. It gets easier. There are definitely people there who are able to bring fully themselves, but it just wasn't me, It did teach me so much, though. Like, if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be the pitcher that I am. I wouldn't know how to write for talent the way that I do. It taught, like, I wouldn't change it for the world. And it was the fulfillment of a dream. But yeah, I like to go home. I like to see my family. It's a great thing.
I love it. Yeah. So how did you transition to head writer of Samantha Bee? Because I think that's how you ended. And how long did you spend on that show?
I was there from 2018 to the show till it got canceled, which was 2022. Yeah. Okay. So I was staff writer for a year and a half. And sometimes things happen. The head writer, Melinda, was moving on. And so, I was open to growing. I had a lot of successful stuff on the show. I felt very comfortable there. Like, I was doing some of my best work because it was so appreciated. I can say that too. Like, when someone appreciates you, you really start to shine more and more. And that is, I was definitely turning it out, and I was getting to do some stuff of my own on the show. Like, I did a thing about when Ashley was moving on, because she went on to do Black Lady Sketch Show, we did this piece together about being fat, like sort of like medical fat phobia. And so I was getting, speaking of chonk, so like I was getting to do some things like for the show that were so about like me, and that was such a joy because it was such a nice atmosphere, because it was so encouraging. I think it was just like a very welcoming, shiny place. I was getting a lot out of just being that joke writer. Like, I was writing a lot of pieces, but it was also, I knew that was a strength of mine, and pitching in the room and writing sketches. I was doing a lot of cold opens and stuff like that because I'd come from SNL. I could do a lot of sketch work. And the head writer was moving on, and Sam kind of opened it up to the people who were there, like, to see if anyone wanted to interview for that position. And she kind of asked each one of us. And when she asked me first, I said no, because I really did enjoy that position. I feel like I wasn't quite ready to grow. And then she came, I wanted to grow, but maybe not there yet. Who knows? Listen, we're constantly trying to find the strength in ourselves. And that was the first time that I was developing. So I had my first pilot with ABC about the same time. And in my little head, I was like, oh, this will definitely happen. Like, I didn't know. It was my first experience with that. And I was like, oh, clearly I'm going to move from late night to narrative, which was my goal.
Totally possible.
Well, I did it. It just took a few more years. But I thought that that's going to happen. So why would I want to be a head writer of a show? And then she came back to me because Mike Drucker had also floated the idea of sharing it with a person. And she came back to me to ask if I would be open to sharing it with him. And that was much more attractive because the part that I love about that job was the writing. I love to write. I'm not one of those people that's like, I gotta write. I enjoy the act of writing very much. And so the thought of managing people, which I felt like I could do because I had run a lot of sketch teams in the past, that didn't seem as exciting to me. And also I knew it's a hard job. Especially on that job, you're making sure that everyone feels okay because all day long, people are working on the most traumatizing material. They're ingesting the saddest news of America and beyond. So a lot of being a head writer for a show like that is making sure that everyone is being taken care of. And so I was like, oh, that part I'm not as excited about. I feel like that's beyond the scope of what I know how to do. And the idea of doing it with someone else felt much more manageable. And it felt like I would still get to do a lot of writing, which I did. And we just met with Sam and the executives and kind of pitched what we would do and who we would be. And yeah, we got that promotion January 2020, an auspicious time.
Wow, you've really been working on cool shows during these really, really huge inflection points in the US.
Well, we've only had inflection points, right? So right. Can you imagine that? I can't.
Yeah.
I truly can't.
Yeah.
I don't know what it must be like, what it was like in the 90s. I have no idea.
Right. So now I'm wondering, like, you've had these two, I mean, particularly SNL, I think it's like such a specific experience, in terms of
Yes.
being a writer.
Yeah.
Samantha Bee, I imagine, would probably be a little bit more like, I guess, normative. Normal. If you could describe it as normal. Yeah. I wonder if has there been like a lesson that you've learned, in this time that you've lost your dad, you transitioned into going in for your dreams, and then to working on SNL, and then to working at Samantha Bee, and then to being a head writer. Has there been a lesson that has really stuck with you that you feel has is kind of been like the lesson of the like a thematic lesson that keeps coming back and keeps helping you time and time again?
Oh, that's so funny. There are a lot of lessons. Um, well, I think that like a great show starts with good leadership. I, like I've definitely seen how different people's experiences go awry. And by the way, I can also say with I know that sometimes I will have a great experience in a room and then I'll know that someone in that room did not have a great experience. And there are a lot of things that can go into that. But I do think like when people try their best with leadership, the rest of it follows. And I've also, after Sam B, I had the experience of working for Natasha Rothwell in her show How to Die Alone. And
how was that?
the best. Please, it's the best. And again, like what a treat to like go back to not having to manage people. I was a supervising producer on that show, so had like a nice like position, but getting to write like, and pitch jokes and just script, and without having to be the person to say at the end of the day like this is what matters. What a pleasure. But Natasha came from SNL too, and so like it was good to see her experiences and to talk about those experiences and to see like what she took in terms of like being a leader, because she was a showrunner along with Vera Santa Maria. Seeing like how she wanted to lead and manage was very inspiring, and sort of knowing that we had come from a similar place was like very interesting. So I think leadership is key. I also think this is a new one for me, by the way, which is real, and maybe it's an old one that I'm only just now learning the lesson, which is Ashley said this to me last week. Don't turn a good thing into a bad thing. I think we have, and I've just been like hearing it over and over again. I'm like, oh God, don't turn a good thing into a bad thing, which is like sometimes one will get great news and will be like thrust into a new position or having to do some new task or project. And like, I will stay up at night. And I did this as recently as last month, suddenly imagining myself 5 years from now actually having to do the thing that you've promised someone that you're going to do, and sort of in the thick of it, creating new problems in your head that are years away from happening. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like even like the strikes or something. Like this period has been, as we know, like really incredible in terms of like self-care, in terms of slowing down, in terms of like taking a breath and being creative. And to focus on the difficult parts of it takes away the like honestly like the freedom and the joy that has also come from it too. So I just try to, in my head this past week, I've been like, I'm not going to turn this into this great thing. I'm not going to start stressing about what the other side of it is, and I do that. I start creating a problem.
I mean, that's an interesting way to put it. It is scary though.
It is scary, but like I will truly go from like selling a show to being like, God, now I have to deliver, like now I'm gonna have to like figure out what the wrap gift is gonna be. Like I will skip to a million degrees, that's what I'll do. And so I feel like it's good to stop yourself and say that,
100%.
Just ride it.
So focusing on the positive as much as possible. Yeah.
And the present, the reality.
Yeah.
Not
we
the
literally
thing that you
have to.
create. Yeah.
Right. I love that. I mean, sage words, very, very true.
From Ashley Nicole Black, not me, but I'm repeating them. And she got them from
I feel like it's something anyone could have said.
We should all be saying it.
No beef with Ashley Nicole Black. I'm just kidding.
No beef. No beef.
Is there anything that you would like to leave with the creative community, Kristen?
God.
Christmas bitch.
Christmas bitch. Like, it's, we're only a few more months now. How many? June, July, August, September, October,
6
November, December.
possibly.
Yeah, 6, 7 months. 6, 7, 8. Whatever it is, it's just around the corner.
Yeah, always
getting ready for it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think like, what do I want to leave for people? I think a great freedom in this world is getting to the spot where you can just be honest about who you are. And if people want that, great. And if they don't, you'll find something else that's better for you and them to do,
How did you get to this? How did you arrive at this? Was it the experiences that you've had at these places?
How did I arrive? I mean, I think, you have touches of it, because I think it was the experience of going from SNL to Full Frontal. It was like I just so clearly knew what it was like in an environment where people wanted me for me, then I could do better. And so then I can identify quickly, like in a meeting or like, sometimes, when I feel this feeling of wanting, when I'm like, oh God, I really wish that was the thing. That's not a good feeling for me, because it's like, that means that I'm wanting something that maybe I'm having to like fight for. And if whatever's meant for me comes to me, and I think that's true for everybody. Like the things, it happens every day. Like, and I'm happier that way. I'm happier when I just feel more secure when, like, I know that the person that wants this thing is there for me, and I'm not trying to fight for, especially right now, I feel like we're all fighting for staff jobs in a way that maybe we haven't in the, like in the past. Like, it hasn't been as competitive as it is right now. And I think that's both frustrating, but at the same time, like, the things that are meant for you, you're just going to shine at, and the things that like you fight to get into weren't meant to be,
100%.
100%, okay?
Dude. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, good. Absolutely. I love it. I'm so happy for you. Such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much, Christmas bitch, Kristen Bartlett, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. What a joy. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that. Kristen is such a gem. That's all I've got for now. Until next time, get out there, get to work.